thank you for hanging out to the last panel of the day. I know this could be tough. You've got the bar calling, you've got dinner calling. So thank you so much for joining us today. This is a super cool group of artists, and this panel is on novelty, right? New novelty and what Oklahoma artists can bring to a global stage. So before we get into the questions, I would love for each artist to introduce themselves, say where they're from, where they live now, and a little bit about the artwork that you do, sort of what you see your role is in the visual art community. So Brian, let's start with you.
Hey, yo, Brian. I live in New York City. New York through and through, from upstate New York. I guess my art practice has been kind of weird. I do a lot of performance art installation, multimedia works, video works. It's actually funny. I was having studio visits today, and I was like trying to tell artists to try to like hone things in a little bit. And I'm guilty of the same thing. I get distracted easily. I'm trying to do too many things. Some of the pieces that I've been known for have been political statements. I've been put on a Secret Service watch list for making a tombstone for Donald Trump. I inadvertently started a creepy clown pandemic, which happened probably a few years ago. You might have noticed.
Yes, I was afraid to go to a park for like a year because of that. So thank you very much.
Which we can go into art speak about that, and y'all probably still call me an asshole. That's fine. But there was a purpose behind that, and the performance art aspect about bringing in the art practice outside of the studio and the public sphere. And I've been shot at as Bigfoot. I don't know if that's relevant to anybody, but a lot of different weird, trying to bring the art practice kind of outside of the gallery world and make it more public art practice. And aside from that, painting and the traditional media, you can judge that on your own if you want to look me up. That's fine. And I'm here for questions.
Hey y'all. I'm Rebecca Campbell McElwain. I'm from West Texas originally and have called Tulsa home for almost 9 years. I traditionally was painting. That's sort of how I got started in the art world, but started working with leather in the past 2 years, and that's really changed my practice quite a bit to more installation-based concepts and just working with different mediums. Performance. My work is very much centered around community right now in the Tulsa community, so thinking about creation in the sense of physical objects and installations, but also in how I work with community every day. It feels like a part of my practice right now that I'm understanding and evolving as I go.
Hello, my name is Caleb Lindsay. I'm primarily known as a video and performance artist throughout the art world, but I am interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. I grew up in a small town called Stuckey in Florida, in Central Florida. I spent 8 years in Tampa, Florida, getting a BA and an MFA, and then I moved to New York in 2003, and I lived there for 15 years. And during that time, a lot of great things happened in my career. I ended up being on General Hospital. I had the opportunity to do many, well, not many, but some prestigious film festivals like Sundance and Tribeca. I also released music, and I came here in 2019 for the Tulsa Artist Fellowship, and last year I launched the Queen Rose Art House in Kendall, Whittier. I brought a house, and it's a short-term artist residency and a social space. And so right now, part of my work is focusing on social practice, although I know many years I was kind of resistant to social practice. Not that I wasn't about the community, because I co-founded a community festival in my hometown in 1998, but I never put the two together, my work and social practice. And so in recent years, I've started to do that. And so that's sort of like my focus at the moment.
That's so great. So one of the questions we did have, we'll go ahead and kick it off with you, Caleb, was about the Queen Rose Art House. And tell us about like your long-term vision for that. Tell us what you aspire to be true about it.
When you say aspire to be true, what do you mean?
I mean, what's the heart of it that you want us all to experience and know?
Yeah, so I started doing artist residencies in 2002. My first one was at Skowhegan up in Maine. And it was like an artist retreat, an artist colony. And I remember my mentor telling me I should apply. Like I was in the hallway just looking at the things on the bulletin board. She was like, "Oh, you should apply to that." And so I look at it, and then I go in her office and I say, "Well, I don't think I want to go hang out in the woods for the whole summer because I'm from Stuckey. Like my hometown is like the sticks. And I just don't see how that's going to be fun. Like that's a place I'm trying to get away from." And so I applied, and I was one of the like 3 people to get a full scholarship that year. Like now things have changed where they give out more scholarships, but they really saw like the potential in my work. And so that was my first artist residency. And 50% of the artists were from New York and 50% was from other places. And so going there that summer created the opportunity for me to actually move to New York because it was like 65 artists. So half of those were from New York. And so it made it really easy for me to move to New York after I graduated. I had 1 more year to go. And so from there, I did residencies through the years, but sort of like when I needed them. Like I'll never forget, I was in New York and I had kind of had it. And it was like, I had been there for like 2 years and I was just like, gosh, I'm ready to get out of here. And then I get a call saying, "Caleb, we call to congratulate you because you got a Marie Walsh studio, like a residency program that's for a year, like a free studio in New York." And so I got that residency. And then not too long after that, I got the Louis Comfrey Tiffany grant, which was like $20,000. And so I had a studio and $20,000. So I was able to quit my temp job and have a studio and work. And so it was like, oh my gosh, like I was told that artists need residencies throughout their career. And that was one of the times that I really needed it because I was about to like move back home. And so through the years, I would fantasize about having my own. And so it wasn't until the pandemic that I had made the decision that I was going to do it. But what I was doing, I was thinking back. Well, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life because I was just like, geez, like I'm stuck in this apartment. And I also had found out during the pandemic I had chronic kidney disease, like through a letter in the mail. I was diagnosed with stage 3, but then it regressed to stage 2 because I changed my diet and everything. So I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so I was just thinking, and I thought about this residency that I did in Miami called Fountainhead. And the owners have a house that they live in, and across the street, they have another house that they have artists live out of and make work for like a month, 2 months. I think I did it for 2.5 months, but I think the limit is 3 months. But they may have changed that since then. So I thought, like, what if I tried to do like an artist residency, like, you know, out of the house, you know, with like a mother-in-law's apartment or whatever. So I was just dreaming. And the fellowship was offering what they call the Art Integration Grant. And so we can do whatever project we want. And so I thought, like, okay, if I try to do a feature film, you know, I'll spend like 3 years working on that, and it may or may not get in a film festival. And, you know, and even if it does, it might not sell. And even if it sells, nobody may go and see it. So I thought, like, okay, what can I do that will really have a long-lasting impact? And I thought, like, well, why don't I try to do this artist residency? Because I feel like even if it's just like 3 or 4 artists a year, artists take those experiences with them for life, because I've done that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do, like, for emerging artists, to kind of give them a space to work for 3 or 4 weeks, hang out with community in Tulsa, They get a stipend. It's also a social space. So I'm planning to commission local artists and regional artists to do fence murals as well. And so it's just I call it a safe space for artists to just hang out and just be amongst each other.
That's great. Talk about creating community. So you were kind of you told us a lot about your pathway, which is awesome, because one of the questions I have for all of you is about your pathways to art, because it used to be, I mean, not even that long ago, if you wanted to have a career in visual art, you had to get to New York, right? And is that true anymore? I would love to hear from specifically Brian, as somebody who's described himself as New York through and through, and Rebecca, who has not spent time in New York. So I'd love to hear both of your perspectives about that, like how pathways to a career in visual art have or have not changed.
New York City, yeah. I mean, New York, I went to grad school in New York. I have an art space in New York. I have a bar in Brooklyn. I've curated so many shows. I run an art fair that's artist run that I do in Miami for Art Basel. I see thousands of different things. I had a bunch of great studio visits here today. And some of the questions were, how do you get there and with sales and get a gallery and some of that stuff. And that happens in New York, it happens everywhere. I don't, it's actually a self-flagellating experience. Because at some point you have to understand that you're going to have to sacrifice kind of your artistic integrity to work on what the gallery needs in terms of sales. It is a fine line between compromising yourself and also keeping creative integrity. If that makes sense, I don't know. But it's rare that in New York that you just get to be completely free and expressive. And it's something that I noticed here in Tulsa is different. It's like art for art's sake and art for the people. And that's really an honest kind of take on how I wanted to be an artist. And I'm completely compromised at this point. So I'm guilted and jaded. I'm like an Alanis Morissette song. Just, you don't want to listen to it anymore. What else?
I still listen to Atlantis.
You still listen to Alanis? Isn't that ironic? What was the question again? In New York? What's the difference?
Do you have to go to New York anymore?
I don't think you have to. I think there's definitely more money. There's definitely it's a higher stakes game. It's a gamble. Everything's a gamble. I don't know. I do think that the Tulsa community is better. Like I went to undergrad in Indiana, and spent too many years in Indiana. And I do believe that Tulsa has a lot better grasp on how to like foster and build artists and give people something than other states. And that's just from my limited experience being here for the past 24 hours. But yeah.
Yeah, this is a question I think about a lot, and that I see my peers thinking about and asking this question. I think some of it's around location and some of it's around degrees and the traditional pathways, like more even just the BFA and MFA question that feels particularly important right now because we're reimagining the world in so many ways and artists should be leading that charge. So if artists are leading that charge, how are we taking people to the level in the art world that leads to really strong cultural impact across people without having to necessarily play by the same games that have been, institutionalized and necessary throughout time? And then is that possible? I think is kind of something I'm theorizing around and thinking what choices I make next in my career and what choices we make as a Tulsa community and how we invest in our artists and whether we stay or go is such a common conversation among artists here. But there's so many perks to being here as far as the way our time and our transportation around the city, getting materials is really easy. Taking space and time to develop your practice has always felt more accessible to me here than in the city when you're on the subway and there's so many events to be at. There's plenty to see and be at and do here, but we also can really isolate and develop our practice. So I don't know the answer, but I think it's a really relevant question to all of us here right now.
I don't know if you guys know Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. They were participating in my art fair years ago and just hustling, gave them opportunities. And I feel like I was telling Raphael at the studios, like, just gotta push yourself out there, get grants, try to network, try to find somebody, benefactor, anybody. They got George R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones to give him like $1 million to buy a bowling alley. And now they're spread out all over and they are doing their art their way in their own fashion. And that is not out of the question for people. It's just a different way of how to look at it. So I saw that come from 0 to 1,000. And they actually pay people and pay artists and have a salary and stipends and health benefits. It's a wonderful thing. So just push it, I guess. I don't know.
Can I kind of build up of that too? I'm all about just a conversation. I think that there's really something to this moment in time too that allows that to happen. We have musicians, we have visual artists, we have all the ingredients for the ecosystem to develop, and then culture comes from all of that, which then draws people in, right? Like Meow Wolf had to have lots of creatives involved to thrive, or I think it's soul right now that, you know, it's becoming kind of this art mecca or capital that has not traditionally been that because of a lot of community investment, a lot of funds, but then also the ecosystem of people that have been there. So I aspire for that for Tulsa, but it does feel like a risk and a gamble and something new that isn't traditional from my understanding of the art world.
Caleb, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it depends on pretty much where the artists want their experience to be. Because I feel like as an artist, I mean, you can function in many different ways. I mean, you can function full time as an artist, but you can also function as a teaching artist. I know some people still teach high school and you know, find ways to make their work. So it's kind of the experience that you want to have as an artist. I always tell people, like, don't frown upon teaching, although I don't want to teach full time, but that is a part of the ecosystem. You know what I mean? Like, education is a part of it. And so, like, I mean, you know, like, but also in school, they can't really teach you about the art world. Like, that's just something you have to do trial and error. And even though, like, I have been considered to be successful, it's still up to the artist. You still have to do a lot for yourself, even when you have a gallery or like a dealer. It's like whenever I stop, the whole thing stops. You know what I mean? So it's like you like constantly working. And I also tell artists like go where you want to be. You know what I mean? Go talk to those artists that are where you want to be. Like go to an opening. You know, like go say hello. You can go to New York, LA, Chicago, but also like you also can't always sit around and wait for people to create the platforms for you. You have to create your own platforms. And so that's something I've always like done for myself. Like whenever, like, you know, like there are times when I'm included in a bunch of shows, but then there are times when I'm left out. And I was like, okay, well, I got some time on my hands. Like, what do I want to do? Like, you know what I mean? Let me apply to this thing. Let me apply to this grant. Well, maybe I should start my own space. You know what I mean? Because then I can always guarantee that I'll have people coming through, you know, like a space of my own. But I'm not opposed to like going somewhere else and doing like a, you know, like a fellowship, a short-term fellowship, somewhere for a short period of time. But the thing I do like about Tulsa that I feel like what my work has resonated in this space is because it is a DIY culture. And like my whole career has been built off being a DIY artist. And so I think that's why I resonate here.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on that. My last show I did in New York, I made a bunch of paintings and I started promoting it through my mailing list as Justin Bieber's artwork. And one of the pieces was my son from kindergarten's painting of a cat. I called it Cool Cat by Justin Bieber. And then I did a pop-up gallery on the Bowery across from New Museum. And I called it Gablosian Gallery. It's a take on Gagosian, obviously. And I started pushing it out there and pushing it out there and pushing it out there. And I started getting collectors from the West Coast and the East Coast asking for Justin Bieber's work and a catalog. So I would send them PDFs and I made them sign non-disclosure agreements. And the works were for like hundreds of thousands of dollars for Justin Bieber's artwork. And I got all of these rich fuckers, sorry, to sign the non-disclosure agreement. And it got to Justin Bieber, and then he sent me a lawsuit where I had to step back from me as a performance artist. I dyed my hair and I got some tattoos henna tattoos of the same tattoos he had. I was performing as Justin Bieber, but I had to step back from that. And then I changed the name of the show from Justin Bieber to Justin Bieber is Suing Me, and I put the show on. But it was a way to subvert, like if there's an immediacy or a way to cause spectacle or a way to get people to pay attention to you, you can do it. I mean, I was walking around Tulsa this morning. I'm like, there's an empty storefront here. There's an empty storefront here. What's going on underneath this bridge? Why isn't there a projection art here? It's just like the way your mind works.
So we actually, I'm on a panel that's commissioning artists to do like the underpasses. So they'll be announcing that soon. So I can't really like talk about it, but they are doing stuff with those spaces. Yeah.
And artists are forever ready and excited to do that, right? Like you pop down into a space and there's this like spiritual or mystical flow that happens through an artist, right? That is just waiting to happen in a space that I think we have here as much as there are in places like New York and Miami and, you know, the different places that exist.
But it's important, like if you want to be a part of that, like you can connect to that. And that's one of the things with the Queen Rose Art House, will be bringing out of town artists here to connect with the local and regional artists here. And then hopefully something can come out of that relationship, because it is about relationships that you have with your fellow artists, with curators, writers. Some of those people say they will follow me wherever I go. You know, I'm not saying they all, because I feel like for a long time, before the pandemic, New Yorkers had like a stink attitude sometimes if you wasn't necessarily in New York, but the pandemic has kind of shifted that. And so a lot of people are spreading out. And a lot of my friends aren't in the city anymore. A lot of them are like in upstate New York and some in Philadelphia and in other places that are like calmer, but they're in those places because they still feel like they need a direct line to New York City. But not everybody is in New York the way they were. So they're kind of like open to things being spread out.
Well, and for sure, I mean, obviously the internet and social media has had a huge impact on all of this. But how do we cut through the noise? And Brian has been extremely effective at cutting through the noise and getting attention, whether it's through the Justin Bieber project we just talked about, the tombstone in Central Park, maybe a little too much attention there as far as the Secret Service. But, you know, Brian is somebody who has really done a number of projects and has cut right through the noise. What advice do you have for people that sometimes might feel like they're shouting into the void?
The weirder, the better. I remember, I don't know if you've had like seminal moments in your life with art, but I've had a few of them. I remember number one, walking through the Tate Modern in London, and I'm going through this museum, and I'm really uncomfortable in the Francis Bacon room. And I leave, and then I realize that was the only room that gave me some type of reaction. And that was the seminal moment for me, is that art has a trigger effect for you. And if you're not triggering something, then you know, keep it for design or something or back project. But art should have impact. If it doesn't have vibration or frequency. I don't know what it is, whatever you call it, but it's got to have some pulse or something. If you're not vibrating on that level, then it's not there. And a lot of people can say some of my projects were asinine or stupid, but there was something that triggered people, and it caused a commotion, it caused something, and it made people think, even if it was art speak. I would have to do art speak. You know what? You guys know what art speak is? It's like something you learn at graduate school where you talk about something like a bagel, but you make it sound profound. That is art speak. So some of the projects I would have to do require a little bit of that, but there is an undercurrent in some of the work I do that is about paranoia and fear and pop culture and triggering things, stuff that we have to deal with every day. And I think when you can bridge not just the art community, but you can bridge the regular community and make a statement, that's when you start passing boundaries and start letting people into art in a different way. And that's something I like to do.
Here, here. That is my guiding principle at the Center for Creativity. Absolutely. And I want to make sure we have questions from the audience, that we have some time. So if you have a question, let's hear it. You have somebody's making eye contact with me. Oh no, she's looking. Okay, no, that was a mistake. Any question? Yeah, right there.
Many questions. I'll try to keep them limited. When it comes to doing like performance art and doing something to get attention, you run through like a checklist of how this could ruin your life. Like you see that thing, like I'm gonna go to jail, I have to be a lawyer. Like if you're gonna do something super provocative like that.
Yes. For the tombstone piece, and this probably led to my divorce eventually. I don't regret it, by the way. I was working. I had to discuss it with a lawyer before I put the tombstone into Central Park. I couldn't put a death date on it because that would be a direct assassination threat. I didn't know that, but you know, you talk to people. I worked with Ron Kuby. He was a lawyer for Spencer Tunick. I don't know if you know him, a photographer. There's a lot of like naked people laying down on the street and stuff. Yeah, you know him, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So he guided me through the process. I also worked with him for the Justin Bieber when he was suing me. You have to know, like, it is good to be informed about your rights and what you can do and what you can't do, because you do have a lot of leeway, believe it or not. And a lot of people are timid or scared, but you know, if you have somebody in your corner, you can really push the buttons, you know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I ever been in. I don't know if I've ever been in illegal situations, but I mean, when I started collaborating with James Franco, in terms of the politics of the art world, there was a lot of yays and nays in that sense, where like his producers, they didn't want him to do a soap opera because he was a movie star, but he pushed through it and did it anyway. There were people in the art world who felt like I shouldn't collaborate with him as a visual artist because he was such a Hollywood movie star. There might have been too much exposure for me.
Like a sellout kind of a thing, or just like this isn't the direction that you should be going?
No, it's like too much exposure where like they want it to be exclusive. You know what I mean? Like like that only they have access to. Although like they would say that, but anytime a celebrity is in the room, the art people like clamoring to them because Hollywood money is different from art world money, although you can make a lot of money in the art world as well. And so we did General Hospital, but for me, it was more about, I grew up watching soap operas. And so for me to do that, it worked. So So that's the only, I feel like politics have played more of like being a career threat. Because I collaborate with like fashion designers like Diane von Furstenberg, Windsor Schuler, but like all of that stuff in the fashion world was great. And a lot of my friends say, well, Caleb, you know, it's really hard to be an artist, but it's really easy to be like an actor or like in these other worlds. So again, like for me, it's like just the politics of it all. But I don't think I've ever been like in the danger that Brian has been in. Because even me, yeah, me and Dan Colin, we did this. I mean, we were banned in London, but we did like a on top of his. We made out nude with the Statue of Liberty behind us called Sweet Liberty, and it was for a big billboard in London. And then like the day before, for whatever reason, they didn't catch the image until the last minute. And so they put it up, but they put it up censored. And like my head was spinning around, like it was like, so we was upset, so we made them take it down. You know what I mean? And so that was like that was the only time. I don't know if it. I mean, Dan showed with Gagosian, and Gagosian represents the piece, but I don't know if that was like going to ruin my career. Like, I mean, I almost didn't care because I felt liberated doing that particular piece. But that's about it. I think that's all I can think of in terms of me.
Can I add a little bit more to that question? Because I think, Caleb, you kind of hit the other underlying thing is some artists that are maybe in Tulsa and haven't been exposed to like big art world or LA or New York might think of art as very transactional, like, oh, I gotta get a following so I can sell objects and people buy those objects and that's what it means working artist. And the bigger art world seems to be kind of playing on a whole nother level where it's far more conceptual and far more impactful. And like, what are you saying about society and culture and how does this move culture? How does it move people? How does it make people think and change the way we function it as a society? And to do those challenging things is like often very challenging to your social life and the people in your family and all that. So if you're like in Caleb's case, putting yourself out there in a way that some of your family might not like.
Yeah, that's true because I grew up in a Southern Baptist Christian. So yeah, there have been moments, even with my videos, that has kind of been alienating. But the public didn't get like a taste of that. You know, like I grew up the church choir boy, and then I started making work about being queer in that context. Huh? Yeah, well, it launched. Yeah, it launched my art career. But again, like sometimes I would go home, like they're not gonna celebrate me the same way the art world celebrates me because they really want me to be another Tyler Perry. But I just did not want to go down that route because I just felt like that's not who I was, and I need to be honest about my sexuality. So yeah, so it can be alienating in that way, but I kind of lean into the people that support
that balance between like doing your research, knowing what you're up against, that you're kind of speaking to, but then also fully leaning into your own liberation as an artist and individual is definitely something I grapple with. Like I hear you grappling with that. I'm grappling with that as a Texas girl in Oklahoma who is definitely trying to liberate herself in hopes that it connects with other people. So it's helpful to kind of, for me, definitely to hear how y'all are thinking about that. I really appreciate your perspectives there.
But Brian, do you feel alienated? Like, I mean, because I know like sometimes you do stuff like to kind of fuck with institutions, and I'm friends with a lot of those institutions, but I'm also friends with Brian. So sometimes I was like, she's
and like Tulsa's a small town. See, that's the other thing. It's like if you, as an artist, are not planning to be multi-city and exhibit everywhere and all that, if you really want to be a Tulsa artist, but try to make your art at the same level as like the art world doing things here in this town, to me it seems like a very difficult thing to do without losing all the potential of like getting banned. And it's like if you if you talk about like if you don't know, most of Tulsa's money is centralized to like a very small amount of families to provide most of almost everything that the art community has. We just don't have the volume of the demand for buying and participating in the galleries yet. The rabble aren't showing up, so a lot of it is like funding, and it seems like I don't know, just
that's I would say that's the opposite of where your mind should be. There's opportunity everywhere. I walked around today, I'm like, look at this. It was like Willy Wonka, look at it. Like everything was like a new kid. I'm like, there's so many opportunities. Those same people know that artists are the community that you guys are providing are bringing more people, more money into their pockets. There's a reason why you guys are here, okay? So all of that is wonderful, but you shouldn't be afraid of it. There's people who are getting established from every different neighborhood, every different community. It's just about you doing the same thing. Like, you can't be afraid. I'm not afraid. I've hung clown paintings in the bathroom at MoMA. I don't care. It's statements against kind of the oligarchy, okay? There's always going to be somebody who's got more money, more power, more prestige. But you're supposed to be the creative person. You're supposed to be the person that's going to push against the system, do something different, do something weird. You don't get to be Picasso by being safe. You have to create Guernica. You have to create masterpieces. You have to be bold, and you have to do things. And any type of doubt in your mind, you got to F that.
And I want to say before we run out of time, my cousins did once tell me, like, Caleb, like, when you get on stage, don't be nervous. It's like, because the more crazier it seems to you, the better it is for us. So you just got to go. You just have to go there.
Yeah, and don't underestimate Tulsa. I mean, that's something I've learned. Like, in any city, there's going to be the cave people, the people who are against virtually everything, citizens against virtually everything. But, like Brian said, we wouldn't be here. We have 1 minute left. Who's got a question with a quick answer? Anybody? Okay. Brian shared a seminal moment in his art career. I want to hear seminal moments from our other two panelists in the next 1 minute, 30 seconds each.
I mean, I think mine was ending up on General Hospital in 2010. James Franco was just at my lecture at Columbia, listening to me talk about growing up watching soap operas. And then I was invited to be on a daytime soap opera. So I think that's like one of my seminal moments.
The first time seeing the Whitney Biennial and like understanding what that is and what that represents as a moment in time in America, American artists having something to say.
And I guess my other is I got the Guggenheim at 29. That was
just a little Guggenheim.
And I'm 45 now, so that was like a long time ago.
Great. I cannot. Okay, 30 seconds. I want to hear your next satellite art show. It's going to be on Miami Beach. Tell us. Give us a preview.
Art building a big tent costs a lot of money. I don't want to do that. I want to push new concepts in art, so I'm doing shipping containers. You can drive your vehicle in. You can bring an RV. You can do anything you do after installations right on the beach. And 3, 2, 1. I don't like the other art fairs. This is for artists. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much to all our panelists. Thanks for you for hanging out to the very end. Yes. Let's go listen to music. Let's drink some beer, and let's come back tomorrow for more great stuff.